Okay, so here are some questions that I want to frame our time around. I don't have all the answers, so I'm just telling you now. But here's what I'm thinking a lot about as we engage in this work. In California, who are your Black or African American or Caribbean students who are also eligible for language support services? Who are they? Do we have a number? And if we have a number, do we have a story behind the number? So first and foremost, how do we quantify the population? The second is leading into that part around the storytelling. Data is just a number, right? It's just data, but there's so much more behind it. And I'm really interested in that part. I'm a storyteller and I engage with hearing people's journey and then sharing it out to wider audiences. And then of course, what are the needs of the students and also the teachers who support them? And we'll talk more about that. And then the last one is just getting back to what's our responsibility as a community, that this shouldn't be a few questions that one or two or three select researchers are asking, but instead more of us are asking these questions, I'm sorry. Okay, so click once. All right, so how many of you are familiar with Hall's analogy of culture, the iceberg analogy? Just say yes, even if you don't know. Okay, yeah. So this is this is Hall's iceberg analogy of culture, right? And so this is from the 70s. And so we talked about like this iceberg, and above the iceberg are things you can see, language, holidays, some celebrations, some cultural norms are easy things to see. But of course, below the surface is all of the things that are there, but we just can't see. So a few years ago, I started kind of using this iceberg analogy to talk about the work. And it just, again, came back up and I said, I'm feeling that iceberg coming back. So click the next one, please. So this is my iceberg analogy of the work that we do with English learners. I hand drew this myself. No, I totally didn't. I found an artist to do it. But this is what I'm envisioning. Like, here's what we know. We know a lot. We have decades worth of research. We've had projects. We've had funding. We've had all kinds of policy and tons of books. There's so much out there, right? So we know a lot. There's still more that we need to know. But so far, I'd like to say there's a lot of information. Next iceberg, please. What's happening here? Does this capture it? Yeah. When we talk about certain racial groups of multilingual learners, English learners, it's not the same. And so we in the field have kind of created this inequity, even with our best efforts to be inclusive and championing for all. Here's where we could do some more work. So I hope that in the future, you'll see a different iceberg. But for today, I think this one is probably most appropriate. So what's happening nationwide with statistics around English learners, multilingual learners? How many of you are familiar with Encella and their fact sheets? Yes, okay. So students, definitely go and check out these fact sheets. I'm one of those people, as soon as it hits my email box, when they say, we've released a new fact sheet, I'm already on there. I'm downloading it. I'm crunching the numbers. Like, I absolutely love it. And I've actually emailed them for more. Okay, so like I'm that person who sends the email and says, I'm looking for this data. And they said, well, we'll get to it. But let's just ask anyway. And so nationwide, we know there are about 5 million students that are identified as English learner, which is about 10% of the K to 12 US population. Again, that's been an increase. All of these fact sheets that I'm referring to are in the participant handout if you need to kind of have a closer look. But most importantly, I just want you to know, look at the top 20 languages. Can you see that a little bit? Okay, so here are the top 20 languages from 2019, 2020. And if you can see that list, how many of you teach or engage with students who are from these language groups? Okay, how many of you yourself have one or more of these as your own home language? Okay, so shout out the linguistic diversity. Who speaks what here? What languages are represented? Spanish, Portuguese. What else? French. Okay. I speak Ebonics. I don't know why it's not one of the top 20, but it is a language, right? And so I think it should be here. You may chuckle, but I've actually had a presentation where somebody gave me an Ebonics quiz after the presentation to see if I could really speak it. And I could. I told them, but anyway. So when we're looking at these top languages, I think my next question is, how many of these do you believe are of Asiatic origin? So we have got Swahili as number 14. Is that not surprising? Right? What's happening with those Swahili speakers? We have Arabic as number 2. How many of those Arabic speakers may be identified as Black, African American, or from an African country? We also have Somali as number 11. So what is the data telling us? And then what are we doing about what the data is telling us? So again, I hope you zoom in and take a look at that fact sheet. Let's move on to high school graduation rates. Again, from OELA, the fact sheets. And this is kind of showing you from 2010 to 2020 how our graduation trends have thankfully increased. Right now, in 2010, we were at 57% of English learners graduating high school. Thankfully, right now, we're at 71%. But I'm thinking about the 29% that aren't here. What happened to them? And so here's why I have that iceberg image. Yes, we made it for 71% of the students. They graduated college and career ready on time with a high school diploma. But I'm not comfortable with 29% just being lost. What happened to those students? Next slide, please.